sejahtera dan greetings kepada Tun Mahathir. Maaf saya akan bercakap dalam bahasa Inggeris. Ya. As a lawyer, I want to make sure I am accurate. I just want to touch on a few points, general points first. We are now looking at a text of more than 6,000 pages. There are 30 chapters. And out of the 30 chapters, 6 chapters boleh dikatakan ada traditional trade issues on goods. Bila kita dengar trade agreement, we always think it's about trade in goods. But this TPP, like many of the recent last 10 to 15 years of trade agreements, especially with the United States, are not just about trade. So out of the 30 chapters, apart from the 6 chapters on trade directly, the rest is about regulation ataupun deregulation. It is very intrusive into the policy making and the law making of any country that is a party to this type of trade agreements. Jadi if we look at the chapters, many of you have already started studying it. It covers things from government procurement, services, financial sector, e-commerce, and environment juga ada. Intellectual property, this is one of the most controversial chapters, and I want to focus a bit on that, especially on public health and access to medicines. And if we look at all these chapters, one of the chapters that is the most detailed in this TPP, kalau dibandingkan dengan FTA yang dulu dengan United States, is the chapter on state-owned enterprises dan designated monopolies. In Malaysia's case, is our GLCs. So this is one of the most detailed, and I want to emphasize detailed chapters of disciplines on these kind of institutions ever seen actually in a trade agreement. Jadi when we talk about our concern as citizens, not just in Malaysia, but across all the TPP countries, it is about the right of citizens and our elected representatives and our civil servants to come together to make the right policies for us. Kita yang ada utamakan adalah sustainable development. And for development and the future of our country, for all of us in the world, we want to respect the limits of environment. We want to have the freedom to make sure that we want to use our resources well. And if we take certain actions, we want to be able to answer to our people and to our God, whatever our beliefs are, and to the future generations. So I want to make this general point because this agreement is not so unusual because we've had many such agreements before. I think because there was so much public opposition in many countries, termasuk Malaysia, so many of the negotiators tried harder and managed to get some exceptions, a better balance compared to some of the other FTAs from before. And if you have to go through the 6,000 pages dan lebih daripada itu, just to understand what exactly is protected, what is carved out from these kind of very negative disciplines, will take us a long time. Our moderator was very optimistic. You say we have all the answers. We're only beginning. We have in the World Network started to look at this with many of our colleagues in different NGOs and with the Bantam members. Professor Goodell was just saying a few days ago, kalau kita ada 2, 3, 4 pakar undang-undang full time, it will still take us months to be able to go through for a preliminary analysis. Jadi, my first big call on our government, don't rush. Don't rush to sign, don't rush even especially to ratify. Because we have so many things, for the first time, we can see the text. And as we talk to many of our own negotiators sekarang, because it's a roadshow by the government, we are asking them many questions. And many questions they still cannot answer us because this is such a huge comprehensive agreement. So most of the negotiators were only negotiating parts of it. Jadi, for example, if you look at just Kementerian Kesihatan and the Ministry of Environment, there are at least 14 chapters that will affect them. So you don't look at only one chapter, you have to look at all the connected chapters. For the Ministry of Finance, Kewangan, just all the issues that is the responsibility of the Kementerian Kewangan, something like 21 chapters will have an impact. Some maybe benefit. A lot, as we see in the first study, is actually problematic. So we need to understand the implications. The other thing I want to sort of emphasize as a general point, yes, there are some exceptions, and in negotiations, kalau kita boleh masukkan as many ambiguities as possible yang tak begitu jelas, then we can come home and at the national level, we can interpret. And you can bring all your lawyers, as many as you can, as good as they are. And we try to interpret the treaties, the new obligations and all that, as best as we can for our national interests and our people's interests. That is important. All international agreements give you that flexibility because that's how you negotiate. But that assumes that the negotiations are of people of equal power. But these kind of trade negotiations are equal. The more powerful economies, the United States, for example, they had thousands of cleared advisors, especially from industry big companies. They can go through, they have more lawyers than I think most of the TPP countries put together. The other countries not on the other states. So it was not a very equal negotiation power setting. Lagipun, it was so secretive. So secretive is not just we as citizens who had no access, but unless you are a cleared negotiator from the government, other people could not even see the text. And that's why in the United States, their parliamentarians, their congressmen, they were all shouting and screaming. They say, we are elected and we cannot see the text. Kalau boleh, you go into a room by yourself and you maybe look at the text. Nobody can come with you, no pencil, no paper. What kind of agreement and process is this? Fundamental question. So now that we have a look at this, can we have the freedom to use whatever may be positive untuk interpretasi? No, because I want to point out that there is a process required by the United States law. This is the US law. Before the United States Congress can legally ratify or agree to enter into force into the TPP or most trade agreements, there's another process. The President must certify that the government of the United States puas hati sekali, is satisfied that the rest of the trading partners, termasuk Malaysia, that we have complied with all the provisions and obligations of the TPP, comply in a way to the satisfaction of the United States. This is called the certification process. And this is a very, very important process, which means the 6,000 pages that we see today may not be what is going to be implemented. We have done some research in TWN with many of our colleagues in other countries, and there are cases of previous trade agreements with the US, where as you are trying to implement the treaty, you are getting ready what law you want to change. In Malaysia, we have at least 20 laws at the federal level. Belum habis kira lagi, that we will have to change. We will have new laws we have to pass because we have to sign new treaties that we in the past did not want to sign. Treaties that can affect our small farmers, that will affect our biodiversity. We have to sign new treaties, which means new laws. So every step of what we do will be examined by the United States. We have many cases we can share with you about what happened in the other treaties. A quick example, in Australia, when they signed the FTA dengan Mereka Syarikat a few years ago, they had to change the copyright law. We will have to do the same. Our copyright law gives protection 50 years after the death of the author. Now it's going to be 70 years. 70 tahun, okay? We import a lot of books and content in Malaysia. We don't generate so much of our own. We import a lot for access to knowledge. We are going to be affected in a serious way. A group of academics from universities in our country, so they bought satu analisa, and they are very, very worried about this. So in the Australia case, they passed a copyright law following that trade agreement dengan the United States. The United States was not satisfied, and they forced the Australian, this is Australia, to basically have a new law. Jadi the Australian government had to call the parliament a special session at night to pass the law that would satisfy the United States. Now, hopefully that is an extreme case. But in our experience with other FTAs with the United States, they will interfere. They may even force us in also very secret ways, because we won't see it, to take on more obligations than what we even see in the TPP. But importantly, if there is one way or different ways to interpret to be more in favor of public health, cheaper medicines, because right now the industries in the United States, they also want to bantah because they say it's not strong enough for them. The medicines companies, the big pharmaceutical companies are not satisfied. Jadi in Malaysia, I want to just give a very quick example, which is very important. Medicines. Sekarang we have in Malaysia more than 500,000 more than 500,000 people suffer from hepatitis C. Hepatitis C ini is very infectious. It can spread. And if we don't take treatment, many doctors are in this room, your liver gets really sick, you get cirrhosis, and then you can get liver cancer. But there is a new medicine called sofosbuvir. It can cure. Within 12 to 24 weeks of taking this medicine, you can cure hepatitis C patients. You need to use this medicine plus another one called daclofosvir. And these two medicines will cure. It's an amazing medicine. But to get sofosbuvir is $84,000 for 12 weeks treatment. $1,000 for one pill. The other second pill you must take together is, at the moment, $750 per pill. There is a private patient in Malaysia who actually had to buy this privately before the sofosbuvir, paid something like 380,000 ringgit for 12 weeks of sofosbuvir. That was $91,000 at that time. Now, with our ringgit going down, today it will cost 400,000 ringgit if we don't do something about getting cheap generic prices. Tadi yang video itu was talking about ubat generic. So you combine these two medicines which can cure hepatitis C, which is a big problem in Malaysia. It would cost us 800,000, 700,000 ringgit for 12 weeks of treatment. And you need more, it's more. So, but there is a solution because there is a generic version. Kalau sofosbuvir yang 84,000 for 12 weeks, you can get it for $300 from generic companies making this medicine in India. And now the prices are going down because more generic production is going on. It can even go down from some reports to $160. Yang daclofosvir, yang second medicine too, the generic version is coming. Okay, it's going to be produced. And that will bring the price down. And some studies show that in the long term, that $780 per pill can go to $10 to $30 for 12 weeks of treatment. So, kalau ada generic medicine, can you imagine what we can do? We can actually get rid of hepatitis C. But boleh tak? Because right now, the patent on these drugs are very, very long. They're held by big companies. And these two big companies, mereka beri license kepada a lot of Indian generic companies to make generic version. Tapi Malaysia is excluded from those voluntary license. Thailand is excluded. China is excluded. So even if these companies license generic makers to make cheaper ones, up to $300, they tell them, this is the 100 countries you can send to, but Malaysia is not one of them. And Malaysia will always be kept out. The second one, which is also a license which just was given last month, Malaysia is also out. We have spoke to people in the Ministry of Health. They are very, very worried. They want these medicines. Jadi, at the moment, our Ministry of Health is negotiating with Gilead that holds the $84,000 pill patent. And it's very, very difficult negotiation. They will give us a little bit of discount, but they will never go down to 300 or 160. Jadi, from the public health point of view, the only way is to get cheap generic medicines. Will TPP allow us to do it? Yes, some of our rights to issue compulsory license, boleh. In 2003, Malaysia, under our government at that time, issued the first compulsory license after this big WTO declaration on public health. We were the first country to issue a license to import HIV/AIDS drugs. Dan harga jatuh 81%. 81% reduction in the price when we imported generics compared to what these companies who hold the patent were selling us. And once you have generic, these big companies must also lower the price. This is real competition of the market. So it is important. Now, we still can do that. Tapi, these patents are going on to 2024-26. And now, under TPP, they say, if you are slow in giving your patent, you must tambah the years so that we get effective 20 years. For people who will die, if we do not give them medicines, we cannot wait for the end of the patent. So we are asking our government, issue compulsory license and all these kind of ways, yang legal, to get the medicines. But we have another problem. Because the drug companies for the last 20, 30 years have been trying again and again, even if they have a patent tak cukup. They say that the generic company, kalau you nak sell the generic ubat, you must also register your drugs. To register the drug, they say, well, if I'm a generic company, I don't need to do all the clinical trials, which are very complicated. Because the minute the original company sudah register, you can use the data of the clinical trial. Jadi generic just show my medicine is the same, it has the same effect, it can cure. I do some small testing, and then I can get my registration, you can sell the cheap medicines. The big pharmaceutical companies and other patent, they're now saying our clinical trial data should not be used for registering generic drugs. We will want extra protection because we spend so much money on clinical trials. So they want 5 years. Now we have in Malaysia already what we call data protection atau data exclusivity. We actually do. Tapi our data exclusivity guidelines sekarang is flexible. It understands that public health needs generic medicines. Jadi we say you can give up to 5 years. Kalau it's a very important medicine, and there are enough reasons why the government can say we give 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. 5 years is the maximum. Under TPP, data protection, you cannot use the data for clinical trials to register for marketing, generic ubat. Minimum is 5 years. Right now, our maximum is 5 years. So this will be one of the changes which will delay generic medicines from coming to the market. And there's a new class of medicines called biologics. These are the new medicines coming. Yeah, a lot of it like insulin or it's more injection. It's a different type. It's a new class. Most medicines are coming up, yang dipanggil biologics. For the first time, we have also this 5 years biologics. Tapi you can choose 5 years or 8 years. Malaysia in negotiation say we will only take 5 years. We won't give more than 5 years. But there is an option to give 8 years. We hope that in the certification process, pressure will not be put on Malaysia to go for 8 years because the industry in the United States, tak puas hati, they wanted 12 years. So for them, 8 years is a minimum. So we have to see how we can protect ourselves. So I want to just raise this medicine point because there are many, many issues to talk about. Kerana this is a very important thing. And we have Kementerian Kesihatan has been very strong in saying that if medicines price will go up, this is something that, as the Ministry of Health, they will have a lot of concern with the TPP. The PricewaterhouseCoopers report says there will be minimum impact of TPP on the generic manufacturing sector in Malaysia. But if we look at all this and really measure, because the PwC report does a 10-year simulation economic impact, the WHO has an impact assessment of trade agreements on the prices of generic medicine, etc., with more and more patent protection. And they say you must take a minimum of 15-year study to be able to assess, because the impact of high prices from more patent and other intellectual property protection will only be seen selepas 15 tahun. So there are many, many problems also with the PwC cost-benefit analysis that needs analysis. So I have many, many things to share with you, but I just wanted to focus on this because I thought that the medicine thing is right now. Our Ministry of Kesihatan is trying to get the generic medicines. We have producers in our country who want to make the generic medicines, but we have now new obstacles. Thank you very much.